Confident, confident, confident. I can be confident, 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 confident. I can be confident at work.
Hello and welcome to the Confident at Work podcast. I'm your host and your confidence coach, Anna Manning. Today, we're talking about how to stay confident when someone disagrees with you at work. So let me set the scene. You've shared your opinion, whether that's in a meeting or in a discussion with a colleague, with a boss, and someone immediately pushes back. They might question you, they might challenge you, or they might outright disagree. Then suddenly you feel unsure. Maybe you start doubting yourself. Maybe you back down. Maybe you get flustered. Maybe you get silent. That's what we're talking about today on the podcast. It's a frequent flyer in my coaching sessions, and I was prompted to talk about it particularly from this angle because I recently had a consult with somebody who told me I'm okay giving my opinion. I can give my opinion, like I'm confident enough to do that. But if then somebody disagrees with that opinion, then my confidence crumples. And you might be the same. You might feel confident enough giving your opinion, but it might be when that challenge comes that your confidence suddenly feels like it deserts you. And if you want to stay confident in that moment, when you're challenged, when you're disagreed with, then this is the episode for you. So, we're going to take a look at why disagreement can feel so personal, how the low confidence cycle and being stuck in a low confidence cycle can make this worse, how confident professionals handle disagreement, and we're going to take a look at what to do if you feel like you're backing down a little too quickly. So, your confidence deserting you when someone challenges or pushes back could be cause for a number of reasons. But the ones that I tend to see when I'm working with clients on their confidence is that disagreement can feel really personal. So, in the moment when that disagreement comes, for the person who's feeling low on confidence, it's going to feel like their very competence is being questioned. So it's not their idea or their approach or their suggestion, the thing that they were putting forward. It's not that that's being questioned. It feels like at that moment, it's them that's being questioned. And I will say this, there will be moments or there could be moments in your career where this really is what's happening. That is a different episode. But this episode is for those moments where it feels like they're questioning your competence. But actually, if you stood back from it, you'd say, do you know what? They're not, but it feels like that for me in the moment. And very often, if this is the case, if they're really not questioning your competence, they're just challenging you on an idea or on an approach, the person who we know is questioning your competence at that point potentially is you. And you might not even notice this in the moment, right? If someone disagrees with you, in that moment, it can feel like they're questioning me rather than my idea. And common thought patterns that you might see are, well, they don't agree with me, so maybe I'm wrong. Or maybe I actually don't know enough about this. Maybe I should have been more prepared. Maybe I should have thought of something else. Maybe I shouldn't have even made this contribution or this suggestion. Or even worse, in that moment, they think I don't know what I'm talking about. They think I'm rubbish at my job. They think I shouldn't be here. And that leads to the emotional kind of response behind the thinking, which is I'm feeling exposed. I want to potentially avoid conflict. And then sometimes I'm overthinking it after the conversation. So it's not just in the moment where I'm feeling exposed and I'm feeling that it's really difficult. Maybe I'm just backing down or staying quiet or agreeing with them. But even afterwards, I'm going to be going over it and thinking, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was the idiot. Maybe I should have known better. But sometimes you may also be slightly frustrated with yourself afterwards because you might know that even with reflection, you still thought that was a good idea. You still thought that approach was right. You may actually want to, in that moment, have continued to challenge, have continued even to just be curious about their perspective or what that is. You may actually really want to be able to listen to that and take it on board. But it may be that ultimately you still don't agree with it and you still want to be able to put forward your point, go with what you're thinking, or, argue it, at least if you're not the decision maker. But when you're in a low confidence cycle and that challenge comes, if you're thinking, even if this is unconscious, they're challenging me, my competence, the likelihood is that you probably are going to back down, back off, agree, or just kind of fluff through it and do something else later. And of course, being in a low confidence cycle is the thing that's creating this, is the thing that's generating this, and it is the thing that's going to make it worse. And if you don't know what I'm talking about by a low confidence cycle, go to the show notes, take the confidence assessment. It's a free tool. It's going to help you figure out if you're in a low confidence cycle. And if you are, it'll give you some advice as to how to get out of it. When we're in a low confidence cycle, we're going to see disagreement as a reflection of our competence rather than just a part of the conversation. You might be assuming when you're in a low confidence cycle that everybody else knows more than you do. Maybe you're assuming that everybody else is smarter than you. So typically, you are going to back down quickly to avoid looking wrong rather than just staying in the discussion. Then again, you likely get caught in that post conversation, overthinking, ruminating, analyzing every word, right? At that point, you take up your second job of mental overthinking and overplaying, which might lead to you feeling kind of frustrated. I've spoken to so many clients and they're like, I'm so frustrated because I actually thought that was the right thing to do, or I actually thought that was the right way, but I backed down. And unfortunately, being frustrated with yourself leads to an erosion of your confidence even further over time, which is what we don't want, right? So, how are you going to be handling disagreement and challenge when you're feeling really confident? When you're like 8 out of 10 confident and you make a point and someone challenges or disagrees, how do you respond? It's really worth feeling this through because that's going to tell you where you want to get to with this. But here's typically what people tell me when we explore this issue. What tends to come out is some version of, well, when I'm feeling really confident and I've expressed an idea and somebody disagrees, I don't notice anything happening in my body. So instead of like panic or doubt or fear, or even annoyance, instead they feel quite neutral and they just notice that somebody's expressing an opinion or making a challenge and they can listen to that and stay in the conversation. So, what we know from that answer is that there's been a subtle shift, but that subtle shift is actually quite profound. The shift is they've gone from seeing the disagreement as a personal attack on them or a question of their competence to seeing the disagreement as just what it is. It's just someone disagreeing, right? See the difference. There's not a lot of drama. It's not a personal thing. It's just them disagreeing with the point. And when they look at it like that, when they feel like that about it, of course, it's easier for them to just stay in the conversation instead of rushing to agree or shutting down. And at that point, they might listen and then adjust based on what the other person said. Maybe the other person's got a different view. Maybe the other person's seen this thing before. Maybe they've actually got a really good point that is useful. So maybe they're going to listen to it and then adjust what they're thinking or what they're going to do without a lot of drama. So they're going to take on board somebody's good idea or somebody's point, think, yeah, that's worthwhile listening to in this case. And then maybe they adjust their approach and go on accordingly. Not an attack on their competence, has not affected their confidence in any way. They've listened, they've adjusted, and they're carrying on with the conversation or whatever it is they're trying to do. The second approach is that they might listen and then still stick to their view or still stick with their approach. So they might say, I hear you. Yeah, I hear you. But I'm content with this approach for these reasons and I'm sticking with it. Or I still think this is the best course of action and maybe stay in the game, stay in the conversation if there's a conversation to be had. At that moment where the disagreement comes, that person is still trusting their expertise and their experience. They're still trusting their own opinion, even when somebody disagrees with them. Sure, There will be times where you might amend your opinion because of something somebody else has got to say. Fine. Good, even. If it makes your decision better, if it makes your approach better, if it makes the idea better, great. When you're in a high confidence cycle, you're not going to have a lot of drama about that. When you're in a high confidence cycle, it's not like you're always going to be right. It's not like your idea is always going to be the best idea ever. When disagreement and challenge comes, you're going to be able to listen to it without a lot of drama, not see it as a personal attack, and then be able to respond however it is you want to respond. Maybe you amend your opinion, maybe you stick with your guns. If you amend your opinion, you're still trusting your own experience. You're still trusting your own expertise. You can hold your ground where you want to or change your mind. Both of those options are available to you without self-doubt taking over. And that doesn't mean that if something doesn't go your way because of a challenge, let's say somebody has the power to override you because they're senior to you, for instance, that doesn't mean that you might not feel annoyed or that you might not feel disappointed. You might. But you can feel those things and have it not impact your confidence, have it not make you question your experience, your expertise, not make you assume that because of challenge or disagreement, they're questioning your competence. You can still feel that that was perfectly valid and perfectly fine, and therefore your confidence is intact. Now, again, like I said at the beginning, it is possible for people to be in an environment where they are constantly undermined, and it actually is personal. It's not just about their idea or their approach. That is a different scenario. And of course, that will potentially lead to a lack of confidence because that's a difficult thing for people to deal with. There are some people for whom their expertise, their experience, their ideas, and their suggestions or their approaches will routinely come under more scrutiny. We know that this happens to women. The research also backs this up. If you haven't read The Authority Gap by Marianne Seacart, she was on the podcast a little while ago, go and read it, or at least listen to her TED Talk. In a UK context, we know that as far away as you are from the white male, able-bodied position, the more likely your ideas, your authority, your experience are going to be challenged. If this is your experience, I do not mean to say from this episode that this is an easy thing for you to deal with. I don't think it is. And I know for some of my very senior women clients that it actually can become rather exhausting. For you guys, I really hope you have support. And if you don't, start to think about whether it's beholden on your organization to actually provide you with that support, given what you are subjected to on a daily and weekly basis, year in and year out. If you need any research to back you up, it's all in the Authority Gap book. Go and have a look, or you can Google it. Come and work with me if you need some support, or find somebody else who can support you. But let's think here about how do you then stop backing down too quickly? And there's two ways that you can go about this. The first is that you could just feel terrible, feel like it's a personal attack, feel all of the exposure and all of the emotions associated with that, white knuckle it, sit on your hands and stay in the conversation by the hook or by the crook. You could do that, and sometimes that might be all you've got. However, it seems a lot more sensible to me to step back and deal with the issue which is actually creating the problem. Figure out, if somebody disagrees with me, what am I making that mean? I.e., like fill in the blank. Let's say I've decided on a treatment approach for a patient and somebody disagrees with it. My fill in the blank is this. Because they disagree with me, that means that what? What does it mean? I must have been wrong. They don't trust me. They don't believe in me. They don't think I'm good at my job. I must not be good at my job. What is the blank for you? You want to figure that out, because that's going to point you in the direction of the deeper thing that you need to consider if you're going to clean up this issue from the bottom up. And if you're not sure about that, here's 3 ideas that you can ponder on, or that you can maybe write about. Think about a particular circumstance where this has happened. Get really specific, because that's going to help. And ask yourself, am I assuming that because my idea is being questioned, it means I'm wrong? The next one is, am I assuming that when somebody challenges me, are they challenging my competence or are they challenging my opinion? And is it okay for me to hold my opinion when I'm being challenged? And is it okay for me to change my mind when I am being challenged? If you brainstorm around some of those, it's going to give you some real interesting insight into what might be going on in your head when you're being challenged that leads to you backing down maybe before you want, or you going quiet, or you feeling frustrated. So dig around a little bit and see what's in there. And remember, disagreement at work doesn't mean that you're wrong or you're incompetent. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't have shared that opinion. It doesn't mean that your expertise or your experience is being questioned. I admit there are scenarios where it might be. But we want to be able to separate those out from the instances where it's not being. Confidence around disagreement isn't always about winning or getting your way. I would love it if you could always win the argument and always get your way, but it's just not how things work, is it? Sometimes someone's idea or opinion is actually going to be better than yours. Sometimes somebody's going to overrule you because they can. But when you're feeling confident, those things can happen. And whilst it might annoy you or even piss you off, it's not going to have an impact on your confidence because you are not going to assume that it actually means anything about you. Your competence is not on trial. And even if somebody else has your competence on trial in their mind, you don't have to agree with them. So if you feel actually, do you know what, maybe by disagreeing with me, someone is undermining my competence, don't join in with them in your own mind. Don't then start putting your own competence on trial. If you think, no, I am competent in this way, I do have the expertise to have this idea or make this decision, then stick with that. Don't let their head get in your head. Because otherwise, you're tantamount to agreeing with them, even if you don't. So watch out carefully for where you're questioning your own competence or you're not trusting in yourself. And sometimes it can be difficult for us to do that. There are all kinds of reasons why we might not be trusting in ourselves. Maybe we're in a low confidence cycle. What needs to happen for you to get into a high confidence cycle so that when someone challenges you, you can stay in the conversation? And if you want to bring this down to something practical and personal for you, and I recommend that you do, think about the last time that someone disagreed with you or challenged you. What did you do? What happened? And slow it down. Pinpoint yourself into the moment. Be there in your mind's eye and go through blow by blow exactly what happened. Did you feel exposed? Did you feel panicky? Did you start to question your competence? Did you get frustrated? Did you back down? Did you go quiet? Were you thinking that their challenge was about your competence? Were you wondering whether you were good enough? What actually happened? Pinpoint it, because that's going to help you. And then think, if you could go blow by blow through that exact situation, same scenario, you give your point, they challenge, what would you like to have happen? Write that one down blow by blow and see what that one looks like side by side. Maybe you'd like to feel nothing really much at all and just be able to listen to their opinion and then keep having the conversation. Who knows? If you want to work on this with me, there are two ways that you can do that now. The first is via private coaching. That's where me and you sit down one-on-one, explore your challenges, and I help you feel more confident at work. The second is to join us inside the Confident at Work membership. That's a place for professional women who want to feel more confident at work. And we have a group format where there are group trainings, group coaching, and there are loads of tools and videos for you to go through and learn all about those high and low confidence cycles and personalize them to you. In March, we've got a good class coming up, an original training, a new training about how to stop worrying about what people think. So if you think, oh yeah, I need to be in that class, and many of us do, then come and join us inside the Confident at Work membership. I will leave a link in the show notes, and I will see you in next week's episode. Bye.
Confidence, confidence, confident. I can be confident. Confidence, confidence, confident. I can be confident at work.